Well, good day to you. It is March the 15th, 2025, and I hope you're having one memorable day out there. My name is Gary Willing. I want to welcome you to Search for Signs. I also want to take a brief moment and just let you know, if you want some background information about what I talk about, if you're interested in knowing more, look into this information for yourself, okay? I have a lot of links in the description portion of these videos that take you to websites that talk about this information. The Share International site is the best link to get the best background information. As far as I can remember, I really have not given a little mini lecture about the history of the masters and why they're here and, those kind of things. Because the videos would just get too long. I think it would get old after hearing that at the beginning of every video. But I also think it's better for you to get the information yourself and not just hear me talk about it to you, So if you check out the information on the Share International site, you get the best background information there. You can read information about Maitreya, about his priorities, about the history of these masters, why they're coming back, what they mean for humanity. You can read articles from Benjamin Creme's own master that would give you a better sense of some of those things, but also a better sense of how these masters are and how they will be teaching humanity, because he is a master who wrote these articles. You can also see images of some of the miracles that we talk about here that I personally believe are evidence of three things. Of hope, because in every instance that anybody who's experienced these miracles for themselves have been left with a greater sense of hope about the future. So they are evidence of hope. They are also evidence of oneness because they are happening to all kinds of people in all walks of life and not just a certain group of people that share a belief. These people all that have experienced these miracles, and you'll see the images of it, you'll read articles about these miracles and so forth on the Share International site. They've all had different religious backgrounds or no religious background, or they might not, worship any kind of God in that way. They might be an atheist and still have a miracle that they've experienced that have left them with a greater sense of hope. But they're also evidence of the awaited teacher. Just my take on it, but you look into it and you investigate it for yourself. You can also read letters to the editor from people such as myself, ordinary people who have already met these masters in their life and have some really interesting and wonderful stories to share about it. You can also get a little bit of teaching from one of these masters that they may have already started to leak out to us through ordinary people. So they're wonderful. It's a wonderful site to go to get the best background information. You want to come back and join the discussion? Ask me a question, post a question in the comments section, and I'll try to answer it in the next video. You can also email me that question at searchforsigns@mail.com. If you'd rather just let me know what you think, pro or con, post a comment, I guess. Now, since the last time I put a video up, I had some wonderful questions and comments, but I did want to fulfill a promise that I made to Miss Cynthia, because I did not get a chance to address what she said in the last video that I put up. Now, let's get on to what she said. What is a god, and why would we want to become a god? I guess it is the next step in evolution. Like a seed grows into a plant, I guess we need to create to know our supreme being and becoming. Blessings. Blessings back to you, Miss Cynthia, and I always love it when you comment and ask questions. Now, I am not full enough of myself to believe that you're asking me what is a god and why would we want to become a god because you think I have the answer to that question. Okay, because I'm not a master. I don't know what it means truly to have the consciousness of one of these masters or to share in that wisdom that these masters have and to be able to love in the way that they do. I'm still learning just as everyone else is learning, right? And I do think that you could try to answer this question in a very impractical way by trying to talk about what is a god in that way, right? Or we could maybe address it in a little bit more practical way to help give us a better understanding of what Ben's master was talking about. Because throughout his articles, he talks about the potential of humanity being a god, that these masters have already achieved that potential and what it means. He talks about it because he is one of these masters, right? But also, and there might be a few of us, maybe not a lot, but there might be a few of us out there, those self-centered types such as myself, that, because this happened to me when I first heard this, I was like, why would I want that? Why would I want to serve all the time? That sucks, right? I actually had that thought. So I'm sure other people have had that thought too, right? And what does it mean to serve? And is serving a duty that we're called to, like military service, with all this sacrifice, pain, and suffering and so forth? Or is it something different than that, right? The impractical thing to try to answer would be to talk about the powers of these masters and how they could, and how we will be able to do what they do, right? Materialize something, dematerialize it, to be able to create this and create that, to be able to think ourselves from point A to point B. And eventually we will learn the same science that these masters know. But if you're attached and you see yourself as separate from everything and you gain those powers, well, what kind of destruction would happen by that? That's why these masters don't harm anyone, because they truly follow what Maitreya is going to teach humanity and has already given out to humanity: honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment. They don't follow those. They are those perfectly. They are that perfectly, moment to moment, without exception. And they will teach us how to do those things. We will, of course, struggle with it, intellectualize it, and so forth until we get the distinction that they have. And it will take us a while to get there, because it took them a while. We'll get it faster than them, probably, because we will have them as mentors, as guides, as ones to aspire to. But I do think that within the get to Ben's Master's articles, because you commented on it, one of his articles, he not only talks about the potential of humanity, as being a god, right? And I know that triggers a lot of people emotionally based on your conditioning and your religious background. But Jesus himself said, "Greater things than this shall you do yourself." It's missed by, I've never heard a pastor in a church say that, talk about that. Why would Jesus say that? Why would this person that we've pedalized, that we've put up on this pedestal, that, this has this, has accomplished what we could never achieve? The love that Jesus had, the wisdom that he was bestowing upon humanity, the gifts that he was giving humanity, and those kind of things. We will never be able to achieve that. That's what they tell people. Why would the person who they're worshiping as the only true Son of God be the one to say, "Greater things than this shall you do yourself," unless it wasn't true? You know what I mean? So, or unless it was true, excuse me, I misspoke. But to get back to Ben's Master's articles, whatever he was talking about, from the first one to the ones that if you read all of his articles, like I'm trying to do, you will get to the core of it, to the heart of it. He's talking about unity. That's it. That's it. He says that's when humanity realizes the truth that we are one, all our problems will go away. Individually, collectively, globally, whatever. They will all go away. In what length of time that they will go away, I don't know, right? But he says it. All the ills of the world are all created from the belief that we are separate. When we share, we will start to experience unity. Maitreya says, when you share, you recognize God within your brother. How could you recognize a God within someone else unless you yourself weren't that, right? It's impossible. When the nations of the world share, we will bring about justice and bring about peace, and then eventually manifested unity and love. How is that possible? Well, all throughout cosmos, these masters say they know nothing but to share. So I would say, what is a god? A god is someone who shares. At its core, a god is someone who sees unity in all things. Unity can't be divided and cut up and compartmentalized as we like to do. And all the systems in place today are not expressive of that truth of unity. They're the exact opposite. When we sit in a church and someone tells us what to believe, there is an oppressor and an oppressed. In every ideology, there's an oppressor and oppressed. That whether it's religious or spiritual or whatever. In economic ideologies, because capitalism, communism is an ideology. There is an oppressor and an oppressed. In political ideologies, in democratism, in republicanism, in whatever left or right wing political groups there is an oppressor and the oppressed, because there's an ideology there. I think Krishnamurti put it the best, right, when he said that how did he put it? Belief has no place where truth exists, I think is how he put it, right? The truth is that we're all one. We don't need to put somebody up on a pedestal to worship. There's why, you know what I'm saying? Why do I need to believe in a God when there is nothing but God, right? Why would I need to want to become a God when we already are that, right? That's the truth of it. Now, to the level of which you're manifesting it, that's the evolution that you're talking about, the next stage in evolution, the steps. But we did not want to grow from a child to an adult. It just happened, right? Well, it's the same thing spiritually within us. We that truth blossoms within the hearts of everyone, because that truth is at least latent within the heart of all humanity. And in none of the writings of these masters, and none of the things that any of the true teachers throughout history that talk about the truth, have they ever said that you have to believe in anything. It is humanity that put that in there. And it's created nothing but confusion, pain, sorrow, and suffering, and fear. But I think that to answer your question as practically as you can, I would say that God is unity. And someone who is a God is someone who experiences nothing but unity, or experiences unity. And once you experience the truth of unity, and it happens in stages and moments, and then you fall back into the illusion of being separate, you have to work your way out of that illusion, and realize the unity and things again. And it helps to read Ben's Master's articles for yourself, right? You get that sense of unity better than me reading it to you. But when you read it and you start to experience the unity, the teaching of this master about unity, you start to see it in things. See it in yourself even. By me reading those articles, and a lot of times I have to read them 5-10 times because I keep making a mistake, right? And I try not to get frustrated, because it does help to read the articles more than once, right? You can't help but to start open up to the unity of things. But throughout all his articles is unity, and how it will solve all the ills of the world, how it will heal humanity, how we will see life so differently, the togetherness of unity and the joy that comes out of that, right? But to get back to the drudgery of service before I get into the next comment and question, when you see yourself as one, you can't help but serve. And I wanted to read this one thing in the Bible that I've, again, never heard anybody in a church read, because it does go contrary to the ideology that they like to spread and to impose on other people. Because if they were teaching this above all other teachings, and this is in the New Testament, mind you, it's written by Paul, they would have such a drastic decrease in the amount of funds that they receive from their people, right? They would have such a drastic decrease in the amount of people who truly followed them. It would free, but it would, at the same time, if they did do this, it would free all the Christians who are suffering from ideology in that way. Now, when I read this, and Paul talks about it in terms of love, love and unity are one and the same, so you can interchange the two words. Owe no man anything but to love one another, for he that loveth another hath fulfilled the law. For this, Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Thou shalt not covet. And if there be any other commandment, it is briefly comprehended in this, saying, namely, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. There is no other law but to love, really. John even talked about it, and I was trying to find the verse before I recorded this video, and I couldn't find it. But that is mind-blowing to think that that was written in the pages of the Bible and no one talks about it. Dare I say, if you brought it up today, I think people would say that doesn't apply to today because they're so wrapped up in their own conditioning. They're suffering from such an enslavement of their own ideology. But that frees everything up. You know, when you experience unity, you experience nothing but love. When you experience unity, you can't lie. You can't harm another person, you know. I would, dare I say it, criticism, because I don't think Maitreya was being critical of Jesus, but the one thing that he did say about Jesus that he was mistaken was when he was trying to impose this social justice. And I do this, I fall prey to it too, just as so many people do. But he said if Jesus just had he just taught self-realization, then all that injustice would have fallen away on its own. And that's kind of what Paul is saying. You know, when you love one another as thyself, not as much as you love yourself, as thyself, you're loving them, you're seeing yourself in them, right? You can't harm someone. You can't lie. You don't want what they want. You don't fall victim to greed and fear and jealousy in that way. You can't. And that to me is what a God is. Does that answer it? Is to love, you know, in that way, to see unity. So I love the fact that you brought this up to give us a chance to discuss it, and hopefully it makes some sense in that way. So thank you very much, and hope you're doing well, Miss Cynthia, wherever you are. Okie dokie. The next one I wanted to talk about, and there was a discussion coming from a person who I've read his comments, and we've talked about this before, at Maitreya. And at the very end, there's a person, James, and I've been on his channel before, and I love having discussions with him. And James, just to throw this out there to you, you had said a few weeks ago that you would be interested in doing I think it's a third interview. Have we done only two? Anyway, and I responded and said, yes, just send me an email and we'll discuss the day and time and all that kind of stuff. And so if you're listening to this, Mr. James, I am agreeable to doing another interview on your channel. Would love to do it at any time. But what did you say? At Search for Signs. Hey, Gary, have you seen this Maitreya that is commenting below the channel? He says he is Maitreya. So knowing what you told me, Maitreya won't admit to it before day of declaration. So this guy is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. P.S. This is James. Changed my channel name from Yeshua. Well, and I picked up that non-demon was you. I don't like to look at people as crazy. I know I call people crazy from time to time. I guess it does my heart good that you're at least listening to what I said. You know what I mean? I've tried to address this before. I don't see it as my gig to tell anybody what to believe, whether it's about Maitreya or about themselves or whatever. There are other people who believe themselves to be Maitreya or Jesus or the Queen of England or whatever, okay? There is a Maitreya, and there is people who say they are Maitreya or think that they are Maitreya. You know, in a little historical side note, Benjamin Crème, who was the spearhead of this information, he himself said he was not the only person that was asked by these masters, by Maitreya himself, to be the spearhead for this information. It was a group of 5 people. Benjamin Crème being in London, there was a person in Geneva, a person in Darjeeling, a person in Tokyo, and a person in New York that were supposed to be kind of like Ben and be the the central figures in this information being disseminated to the public. Maitreya personally asked 5 individuals to do this work. Ben was the only one that took it up, and he said that the one in Geneva did not believe it. The one in Darjeeling is still asleep, whatever that means. The one in New York believed it more than the one in Geneva, but still didn't believe it fully, and had actually from time to time gone to Benjamin Creme's lectures to listen to this for the information for themselves. Now, granted, this was back in the 70s, so I don't know if these people are still with us or not, but I'm bringing up a point. The one in Tokyo was a woman. It was the only woman in the group that was asked to do this work. But she herself believed herself to be Maitreya after Maitreya speaking to her. So it must be an easy thing to do, to see yourself. Because when Maitreya's love flows through your heart, you experience oneness. You can't help but experience oneness. And people might mistake that for them being Maitreya themselves. I don't know. The person who comments on this channel is not crazy. I know he's not crazy because he's not forceful in his way of thinking. He's one of the most loving people that I've interacted with on this channel. I'm not saying he is the most loving, but he is a very loving person and very wise in his own ways and very clear in what he thinks. And yet at the same time, I don't agree with what he's saying as him being Maitreya. I've met Maitreya many times in my life, long before this person probably thought he was Maitreya. And I don't know, but the times that I've seen Maitreya in my life, I've had a different experience than I have with him. So it's just the same as if somebody claimed to be my parent. I would say, no, you're not. My mom is my parent. My dad is my parent. And Linda and Richard Willing were my parents, right? And not whoever else says they would be my parent, right? Does that make sense? So it's not that I'm disagreeing with him or calling him crazy or anything, because I'm not, but it doesn't have the ring of truth for me because I've already met Maitreya. And you're right, Maitreya is not going to claim himself to be Maitreya before the day of declaration. So there are really, what was I thinking the other day? There's 3 clues to the identity of Maitreya. Okay. At the very top, the clue would be he won't declare himself until we all in the entire world know it at the same time on the day of declaration, like you were talking about. When Maitreya overshadows all of the world and we hear his message inwardly in our own head, in our own language. He will not speak it through the cameras and through the microphones. We will see him on the camera, on our TV or our tablet or our phone, but we will hear what he's saying inwardly in our own language. It's a global Pentecost that will happen. On that same day, he will show us kind of where we've been as a humanity and how we've fallen into this morass of materialism and how we can destroy ourselves and what the future will be like if we try the principle of sharing. He will give humanity the choice. Do we share and save our future, or do we continue on the way that we were doing and not? And it is for humanity to decide, not for the masters to decide for us. That's why we have the divisions that we have. And Ben's master wrote about it in the article, The Creation of the Sword of Cleavage, talking about certain people throughout history that act as this divisionary, they divide humanity in what they do. And it's so that humanity learns how to choose and how essential it is that we know how to choose as a humanity. Now, we all make decisions for ourselves, but as a humanity, we do not make a decision, right? We have to learn how to do it as a humanity. Do we share or not? And Maitreya is going to say that the only way to bring about a future is to bring about peace. The only way to bring about peace is to bring about justice. And the only way to bring about justice is to share. So we will have to choose. Thankfully, he has already given us the end at the beginning. He says that we will choose wisely and choose our future. But that will happen on that day. He said also, too, it will be as he embraces all of humanity with his love. We will feel it even physically, his love. And then the third miracle that will happen on that day is there will be millions upon millions of spontaneous cures all around the world. They're all walks of life. People of all walks of life will be cured of all kinds of diseases, injuries, permanent injuries, or maybe even conditions that they had at birth that have left them crippled or whatever will be healed in that way. And as Ben said at the end of every one of his lectures, those three things and only those three things will you know that is who that one and only that one is Maitreya. So we could suspect, when we see Maitreya, because he will be known before that time, right, as another name. We could suspect that that's him, but we won't really know for sure. But I would say that the other clue would be, which is just as important, but maybe not as important as the Day of Declaration, is Maitreya will not say he is Maitreya before then. It's written in the Bible. If someone says go into the desert because he's there, do not go there, right? Maitreya says do not follow him, do not run after him, because once you've run after him, you've already lost him. And I think historically, even in the Bible, Jesus did not say who he was as the Messiah. Didn't Peter have to recognize him? Wasn't he the one that first said that you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God, right? And that started the whole process. And I think Jesus in that scenario didn't even say, don't tell anyone yet. So Jesus wasn't presenting himself as the Messiah, who he was. He was the Messiah for the Jews, but he was presenting himself as just a teacher. So Maitreya will only claim to be a teacher. He's not going to claim to be the Christ. I think even on the Day of Declaration, Ben said that he will only say that he was referred to. Those are names that he is referred to as. He won't claim it because we don't really know what those terms mean. They create confusion because they're based on ideological differences. So that, I think, is another clue, right? But the experiences that I had with Maitreya were so extraordinary. The words and wisdoms that he presented to me, they've sustained me even to this day. I can't explain it. The people most people, and this is just Gary saying this, but most people who have a general interest in this information, most people who have a general interest enough to come to this channel and listen to a video or two, perhaps comment or ask a question or two, have had an experience with Maitreya. Ben said that millions upon millions of people have already seen Maitreya in their own life and just haven't recognized him, So I would say you probably got a pretty good chance. Every one of us who has commented on this channel has already seen Maitreya in their own life. And I would say you are not an exception to that. You might not believe 100% of what I'm saying. You might not agree with it or whatever. And that doesn't really matter. But I think that you have enough of an interest in this information that it could be said with fair certainty that you've had an experience with Maitreya, whether it's a dream experience or an experience in real life. I don't know. Now, as far as I know, there was only one person who commented since I put these videos up, and I don't really talk about this that much because I don't want people going back and trying to find the comment, but there was only one person that I could say either was a master or was consciously working with these masters who commented on my channel. And the only reason why I know and say this about this person was because at the time that they wrote the comment, I was actually thinking about giving up on this channel because I had a lot of stuff going on in my life. There was a lot of things going on. I didn't feel like I was making any kind of headway into making this mean anything to anybody, right? And I was going to give up, to be honest. And this person commented and said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it said something, just when you think people aren't listening, they really are. They really are listening to this information, and encouraged me not to give up. And I saved the post, the comment in my phone, so I read it from time to time. And every time I read it, I feel emotionally verklempt over this. Not about me personally, but about the oneness of this work and what's going on. And it sustained me over the years. It has. There's times that why am I doing this, right? Or I got too much going on. But when I think about this one comment, it sustained me. And then I started thinking about all the times that I've seen Maitreya in my life and he said something to me and it sustained me. I read, I think about something that Benjamin Creme's master said in one of these articles, and it sustains me. And there's a quality to it that I can't explain when it comes from one of these masters. And that's how it has the ring of truth for me. The other part that I think has the ring of truth for this is some of the experiences that I had were just so crazy that it can't explain it any other way than to relate it back to what Ben had been saying about these masters. So for instance, I'll give you a for instance. Okay, so I've had some really wild experiences with Maitreya, but the one that really put me back so much that I was like, okay, this has got to be true, right? I've talked about it being true. I've intellectualized it. It's changed my life, and those kind of things. But really, there's got to be some truth to this, right? Was the time that I asked Maitreya for help to help me clean a building, to get trash out of this one side of the building, and he did. And I didn't see him do it. He didn't come in there with me and do it. He did it when I wasn't there, and somebody else witnessed him do it. So she has this woman, Carol, had no information about Maitreya that I know of that would be thinking that Maitreya, I never said that I asked Maitreya would help, if he could help me to this woman. She knew nothing about it. And Maitreya came and helped me take trash out of this building. It was a simple little thing that he did. He shared a little bit of his time with me, and it made all the difference because I was at such a point at the time that he helped me get the trash out of this building. But when I realized it was him that helped me, and if you want to know this story, go back and listen to it in my Maitreya playlist. It's quite an extraordinary story about Maitreya. But I think I'll go, how can this not be true? I didn't put it there myself. It's got to be true. Or the time that I was teetering on the edge and I fell off the ladder, falling headfirst toward my driveway. I would have killed myself. There's no way I would not have been injured. And yet when I called out to Maitreya as a last resort, I got stopped in midair, man. And he laid me down so simply on the concrete. It is so surreal even to think about today what happened. To me, it's almost a fantasy. I know it happened, right? I remember when it happened. I remember it happened in February of 2020, I think is when it happened. But I laid there on the concrete going, what just went down? I was falling. I remember cussing and falling at the same time. And then when I was about halfway down, I cried out to Maitreya, that's all I could get out. And I stopped in midair, about 3 feet above the ground. And it was gently laid down on the concrete like a mother would lay a brand new infant that had just been born into the crib. I mean, it was just like that. I had no scratches, bumps, bruises. My clothes were not dirty. And when I finally collected myself after this and got up and stood up, I felt better, healthier than I did before I fell, right? I know that there are people who have heard about this information for decades and are still waiting on Maitreya to come. I know there are people who have heard about this information for decades and don't believe it anymore because it hasn't happened yet. But all I can tell you is, there's from my own experiences, it's real. Every bit of it is real that what Benjamin Crème was talking about. I have no collective evidence to prove to you other than the miracles that have been going on in my own personal experiences with this. But it's real. I don't know why people still haven't recognized Maitreya on TV yet, other than we as a humanity are not doing something properly. We haven't responded to what he's already said so far. We haven't made a step in the right direction yet. But I know that he's still there protecting us the same way that he did when I fell off the ladder. We're not going to, as a humanity, are not going to fall off a ladder and hit the concrete. It's not going to happen. Even though we're right now, figuratively, as a humanity, we have fallen off the ladder and we haven't made it to that point where we cry out to Maitreya, but we haven't come to that point where we realize that sharing is what's going to save us, is really what it is. But we have fallen off the ladder as a humanity, okay? And just as he saved me right before I hit the ground, he is going to show humanity how to save ourselves. But I don't know why, personally, why he hasn't been recognized yet. But I know he's real. I know he's real. And I also know that if Maitreya were here, he doesn't need to claim who he is. We would just know it if you were able to recognize. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm getting through to this, and so people claim themselves to be all sorts of things. We all do. That's why I don't think this person's crazy. I think he's just like everybody else. You know what I mean? And he's such a loving man in a way, but because you asked the question, and I feel funny saying this, but no, I don't believe him to be Maitreya, the Maitreya that I'm speaking of. No. Will Maitreya eventually comment on this channel? I don't know. Will he eventually come on this channel and talk to us as a group? Maybe. I just know he hasn't done it as of yet. Does that make sense? And I think even when Maitreya is out in the world and we know who he is, and if we're a Muslim, we will see him as the Imam Mahdi. If we're Christian, we'll see him as the Christ. He won't claim those names. He'll just say, I'm just like you. You know what I'm saying? I'm one of you. I'm sharing the self just as you are. I'm just as divine as you are. You're just as divine as I am, right? But there will be no, I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense. Why would he need to claim to be anything? We will know it when we know it. So, but it does my heart good to know that you are at least listening to that portion of it, James. But anyway, thank you very much, guys. I love you very much. I went on a tangent again. But anyway, I also wanted to say, too, for those people who listen to these videos, I am going to be out of the country for the next couple of weeks-ish or so. I'm going to try to pre-record some videos, but if I don't get a chance to do it, it'll be a few weeks before I put up another one of these videos, but I'll get to them as soon as I can. I look forward to putting up videos in the very near future. Again, like I said, I love you guys. I'll talk to you real soon. Take care. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.